Hey guys, it's Saturday afternoon and it's time for our part two in destinations. So I will give everybody a chance to jump on before we get started this afternoon on this fantastic, gorgeously gorgeous Saturday afternoon. Hey Jessica, yo. We need to stop meeting like this. Melissa, what's up? Everybody's quick to jump on today. I think everybody's probably, I'm trying to figure out if that glare is going to be too much for me. Jessica, you were the first one here. I'm going to give you an extra point for that one. How about that? All right. Good morning. Not much, just enjoying the weather. The weather is fantastic today. I thought I wasn't going to go outside and do any yard work, but I think I'm changing my mind once I'm done with this, because tomorrow's supposed to be stormy and I'm just not feeling it. Melissa and Jessica show off. The weather is great. Kelsey, hey my baby. Jessica, did you get those cannas planted? Problem with bird seed is it makes all that grass, all that grass that grows in the flower beds. All right, I've just got a couple of you here, so we're going to give everybody else a couple minutes to join in. I hope everybody had a good week. I think everybody's ready for a road trip, Melissa. I think everybody's ready for any kind of trip at this point. Hey. Okay. All right. I think I'm probably going to go ahead and get started since we have three very lengthy destinations we're going to talk about today. Hey, Angie. Glad you could join us today. I don't fish, Jessica. Never have. My father always wanted to make me fish. Just don't enjoy it. I don't know. I guess I'm too impatient. It takes too much sitting still and waiting. And for me, that's just kind of, no, I can't do it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started today. There aren't that many announcements as far as what's happening in the travel world this week. It was kind of quiet, which is scary. But the big announcement that kind of closed the week off and left all of us in the travel industry, especially those that sell travel by cruising, in a like, what kind of moment, is that yesterday the CDC, actually it was Thursday evening, I don't even know what day of the week it is. I think it's Saturday. It was Thursday, the day before yesterday, that the CDC announced that they are recommending that all cruises hold to commence operations for 100 days. The order itself, when you read it, does not clarify whether that 100 days was from the start of the recommendation, which was March 14th. That's when all the cruise lines started canceling things, or whether it was from Thursday. If it's from Thursday, that would bring it all the way through the end of July. If it's from the start of the order, then we'd only be looking at through the end of May. So, no, the end of June. So it's left all of us going like, what's going on? There have been no announcements from the cruise lines from the CDC announcements in response to that. So everybody's just kind of on the edge of their seat going, what's next? A lot of people were looking at rescheduling their trips for the June, July, because they're ready to travel for the June, July timeframe. But now it's, what are we doing? The only cruise lines that made any changes to their sailings this week, no land vendors made any more additional changes, were Celestial Cruises and Costa Cruises. Celestial is canceling, and they're primarily in the luxury market. So a lot of European and a lot of the small river type specialty cruising, they're suspending all operations until June 29th. And that came out after the CDC announcement. Costa, which is primarily in Europe, they have suspended operations through May 30th. So I suspect that the executives of all our top cruise lines, Norwegian, Royal International, Carnival, Princess, they're all probably processing this latest CDC recommendation to see what's going to happen and what decisions they're going to make. So we're all on the edge of our seat to figure out what's next week bringing. So, but that was the biggest thing this week. Thank goodness, I'm going to knock on wood. I actually booked one trip this week, so yay. Actually, it's two. I rebooked somebody that had gotten canceled in March, and they went ahead and rebooked for June. And then Angie's sister actually booked her first cruise for July. So let's keep our fingers crossed that both those get to sail. I'm excited to actually make a booking versus just working on cancellations. Did some research this week too for Roberta. I don't think she's in here yet for Hawaii. And for another client who wants to go down to Florida, to Perdido Key in late July. Perdido Key is a wonderful, beautiful destination. So if you've not been there, I'd highly recommend it. But it's not on our agenda today. Okay, so today we're talking about Alaska, Mexico, and the Florida Keys. So hands up if you've ever been to Alaska. Give me a thumbs up if it's on your bucket list. I know it's on somebody's bucket list. I think it was several of you had it on your bucket list when we did our bucket list live. Kelsey, you can definitely raise your hand at having been in Alaska. Kelsey was actually, we call her our Eskimo child. She was born in Alaska. So just, that means your thumbs up, that means Alaska is on your bucket list. Okay, so I did a lot of research, definitely on your bucket list. Well, I don't have it on my bucket list because many of you know, lived there, survived there for 3 years. And from there, we went to Key West. So I'm typing in a URL for a website to explore Alaska. It's a really great website. I'm very careful about when I go through these websites, which ones I pick, because I want them to be generic and I want them to be informative. I don't want them to be pushy in agendas or sales. So yeah, Kelsey, definitely. So this is the website that's recommended by the Alaskan, it's the official state of Alaska vacation and travel information site. And it's got some wonderful information, and I posted a video to kind of give you a teaser about Alaska. And I'm going to give somebody an extra name in the hat if they can tell me what year Alaska became the 49th state. Who can tell me that? Anybody? Don't look it up. What year did Alaska become the 49th state? You get double points if you can tell me the month. Yes, Jess, it's the state right before Hawaii. So Hawaii was the 50th. Alaska was the 49th. Melissa, you're very close. Very close. Anybody? 1947, a little bit later than that, Jess. I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you guys. It was January 3rd, 1959. Isn't that crazy? It's only been a state since 1959. It was our 50th state, 49th state, sorry, 49th state. And it's also considered the largest state. So who can tell me just how big it is? I'm not talking square miles. So let's talk about how big it is as far as square miles. Anybody? Well, I'm going to break it down a little bit more succinctly. Hey, Coy, good to see you. It's bigger than life. Alaska is considered, it's called the last frontier, and that's its nickname. Because there's still so many places, close, Melissa, so many places in Alaska that are considered unexplored. It is, and I had a, doggone it, I had it written down as far as how big it was. God bless America. I don't want cookies. Actually, I do. I would like some Oreos, but I'm staying away from Oreos. Okay. It's so big, Alaska is so big that it's divided into 5 different regions. So there's the Arctic region, which is the northern part of the state, and that is where Fairbanks and Nome, Alaska are. The Bering Strait at one point actually connected to Russia. Mowing the yard, come mow mine. The interior of the state is a subsection that's primarily Denali State Park, that whole central gorgeous mountainous region of Alaska. There's the Southwest region, the South Central region, and then what we call the Inside Passage. And the Inside Passage is where the majority of the glaciers are that you see when you're going cruising through Alaska. So in South Central, you don't have that many cities in Alaska. In South Central Alaska, that's comprised, and we're going to concentrate on this one first because that's where over half of Alaska's population lives, and that's where the majority of travelers start their travel in Alaska. So the South Central consists of the Anchorage area, Anchorage, Alaska, it's where we lived, the Prince William Sound area, the Kenai Peninsula, the Mat-Su Valley, which is the start of the Denali Parks, and the Copper River Valley. So that's considered the South Central region. It's home to over half of Alaska's population. Fishing, hiking, wildlife viewing, mountains, lakes. There's trout in the lakes and the rivers, and there's salmon fishing galore. So it's a fisherman's paradise, especially during the summer months. I mean, if you're into fishing, Jessica, Alaska is your place to go. And it's also the gateway to the interior and the northern regions with the exploration part. So I'm going to go back to the Southwest region. Okay, so the Southwest region, that's more of that's not your comfortable traveling destination. That's your destination where you're going to be roughing it a little bit. This is where you see bears and wildlife. There's over 240 bird species in Alaska, especially in the Southwest region. The landscape varies from volcanoes in Katmai National Park, and we actually had a volcano explode while we lived in Anchorage. I was pregnant with Kelsey at the time. So like I said, I've lived through every natural disaster, including a volcano. The only one I haven't hit is a tsunami. And it's also, the Aleutian Islands are also part of the Southwest region of Alaska. The Kodiak Archipelago is part of this region, and that's known a lot for its wildlife. There's a Coast Guard base in the Kodiak Archipelago. The big city, they're not big cities. They're more municipalities in this area are Bethel, Dillingham, and King Salmon. So that's the Bristol Bay area. A lot of you have heard of Bristol Bay. That's where a lot of the crab fishing go in and out. So if you like king crab and Alaskan crab, that's the place where they usually dock, is in the Bristol Bay area. All right, so let's go to the interior of Alaska. Okay, so the interior of Alaska, the major cities in the interior are Tok, not TikTok, like that app, but Tok, T-O-K, Healy, and then Fairbanks. And I think earlier I said that Fairbanks was in the Arctic region, but I was mistaken. It's in the middle of the interior region. So Denali starts in the southeast region and then moves into the interior region. Fairbanks is the major city in this region. And it's also home to the continent's tallest peak. Anybody tell me what that peak is? Extra point if you know what the tallest peak is and it's in the Denali National Park area. Anybody? Okay, while you guys are typing in your answers, because I know somebody out there has to know this answer. The best way to see this area, because this area is heavily visited by a lot of visitors when they go to Alaska. This is one of the main locations that people want to go, is Denali and the whole region around it, because of the wildlife, because of the fishing, because of the views, and it's breathtaking, it's spectacular. Did somebody type in the answer to the tallest peak? McKinley, yes. Good job, Kelsey, you get an extra point. All right, yes, Mount McKinley is the tallest region in North America, tallest mountain in North America. Okay, so that's the interior region. By road, when you're driving the Alaskan highway from, let's say, Anchorage to Fairbanks, it's some of the most breathtaking driving you'll ever experience. You can also go by train, and a lot of people choose to visit different parts of Alaska, especially from Anchorage all the way to the top of the interior region by train, because of the spectacular views. There are some lodges in Denali National Park, so a lot of Wikipedia sucks. There are some lodges in Denali National Park that you can stay at for, you know, any number of nights, or you can build it into a cruise package or a train package. So it's a wonderful way to visit the parks, and you can also camp. If you're really adventurous, you can camp. My kids camped in Alaska for several times. I'm not a camper, just isn't my cup of tea. I like a hot shower at the end of the day, and I cannot sleep on the ground. Dog sled. I'm glad you brought that up because we will talk about dog sled in just a minute. What is the name of the famous race of dog sledding? Extra point for anybody who can name that race. Kelsey, I'm gonna say that you have to sit this one out. Who knows what the name of the famous dog sled race is that goes from Willow, Alaska to Nome, Alaska? And that's all I'm going to give you about that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the Arctic region of Alaska. She tapped the Iditarod, Kelsey. Yes, it's the Iditarod. We actually have the dogs in the Iditarod, they actually wear mittens on their feet to protect them from getting dry, cracked paws and freezing their paws. Well, when we were in Anchorage, there are tailgating parties similar to our football parties here. You know, when you go tailgating at LSU or whatever, there's Iditarod tailgating parties. And people will set up on the trail of the Iditarod as they come through, and you sit there all day and you barbecue and, you know, build an igloo or whatever, and you watch the Iditarod sledders come by. And in Alaska, when you're in Alaska, everybody picks their favorite sledders, their sled team. And then when they come by, you know, it's a big whoop whoop. Well, the year we watched the Iditarod, the sledder that we picked actually stopped and gave both my boys a set of the dog mittens that his dogs were wearing. And we still have them. They're somewhere. I just saw them recently while I was doing some COVID cleaning. Little orange mittens. You have the booties, Kelsey? Okay. I knew I saw them somewhere. So really cool. The Iditarod is a must if you're here in the wintertime. The Iditarod's normally in the early spring, and early spring in Alaska is still like middle of the winter for us here. So that goes again from Willow, which is in the southern region of Alaska, all the way up to Nome, which is in the Arctic region. Okay. So the Arctic region of Alaska, that includes Nome, Alaska, which is on the coast, and another city called Coldfoot. Those are the two major cities in the Arctic region. And there's three regions: the Western Arctic, the Brooks Mountain Range, and the Arctic coast. The Arctic coast, of course, connects to Barrow. Barrow is the city that sits at the top of the Arctic coast, and that's where the Bering Strait comes across. Very cold. I mean, ugh. Who can tell me what the other main way to see Alaska is? I'll give you a clue. There's more of this type of license in Alaska combined than the rest of the United States combined. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. There's more of this type of license than in the rest of the United States. Good guess, Melissa, but not quite. Think about how people get from these very remote regions to the major cities to restock, refuel, to get provisions. Somebody's got to guess this. Coy, you don't have a guess? By plane, yes. There are more private pilot licenses in Alaska than anywhere else in the United States. So it's a huge way for people to get from point A to point B in Alaska, if you're a resident in Alaska, is to have your private pilot license and by airplane, seaplane, or regular little twin jet planes. So good guess. All right, so Coy gets an extra. Melissa, I'll give you one too, because you tackled that one too. Woo! We got a lot of drawings for that $100 gift card. Okay. The last section of Alaska that we want to just touch on is the Inside Passage. This Alaska snow ski, I mean, yeah, I skied once in Alaska. And I don't think my kids are even, I don't think Wesley and Alex would remember, and I know Andrea wouldn't remember. The one and only time, and I was an avid skier before we moved to Alaska. Like, I skied all the time in Germany, in Maryland, in California. I was an avid skier. I loved it. As a matter of fact, at one point in my life, I thought I was going to do ski patrol in Garmisch. That's when I thought I was going to stay in Munich for longer than I did. My father basically told me, no, that's not going to happen. But when I went skiing in Alaska, an abundance of snow, right? It was so frigid that my eyebrows froze, my nose hairs hurt. It was not a pleasant, fun experience. So I haven't skied since. It kind of killed me. But cross-country skiing is also very popular, and snowshoes is a very popular way to get through the countryside in Alaska. Okay, so let's talk about the Inside Passage. The Inside Passage starts in the southern region of Alaska. So Alaska kind of goes in a loop like this, if you guys are familiar. And the Gulf of Alaska is the body of water. Canada is on the other side, land border wise, and then the Gulf of Alaska is like this, and all the way at the tip is the southern region. So it kind of goes like this, and the southern region of Alaska are cities like Sitka. What's that movie with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds? They're in Sitka. It's a love story movie, and the dog gets snatched up by an eagle. It's a very funny movie. That's in Sitka, beautiful region. Petersburg, Juneau, Skagway are all cities and towns in the Inside Passage. It's the Glacier Bay area. So most of the cruise itineraries specialize in going Inside Passage because of the views of wildlife and the glaciers and just the scenery alone. And we're going to talk about cruising up to Alaska versus other types of travel in just a minute, so I can expound on that. Proposal, that's it, Jessica. I'm going to give you an extra point for that one. Yeah, they're in Sitka, and they probably filmed that June, July. We're going to talk about the weather in Alaska in just a sec. So that's your Inside Passage area of Alaska. So before we talk about when to go and what the seasons are like and all that, I have another trivia question for you guys and an extra point. Who can tell me what the longest river in Alaska is? And if you think about the gold rush and a certain type of potato, you'll get this answer. And I'll give you a second to think about that one. Okay. So visiting Alaska is primarily done from late May, sometimes mid-May if you're flying in, mid-May to late September. Okay. Klondike. Nope. You're close though. You're close. That is a type of potato, but that's not the river I'm looking for. Think about gold. The Yukon. Yes, Jessica. The Yukon River, Yukon gold. It's where the big gold rush in Alaska happened along the Yukon through Denali. The Yukon River. It's the longest river in Alaska. Butter. Good. Okay, very good. So the season for visiting is May to September. If you're driving up, you're driving up, you need at least 2 to 3 weeks if you're driving. I mean, the Alaskan highway is rough driving. There's not a lot of gas stations. There's not a lot of hotels. It's rough driving. You have to be prepared to be off grid when you're doing the Alaskan highway. So if that's the first time you're visiting Alaska, it's not the way I would recommend you travel. It's a great opportunity. My husband actually traveled the Alaskan highway there and back when we lived in Alaska. We got robbed in Canada when they were at one of the hotels sleeping, unfortunately, but he said it was an adventure and he saw sights that he will never see again. So it's gorgeous, it's spectacular, but it's not the safest way to travel through Alaska. The other 2 primary ways to see Alaska is obviously flying in, getting a car, driving through Denali up to Fairbanks, back again, staying in Denali, going down to Seward, which is the primary port in the southwest region, southeast region, excuse me. So cruise ships actually don't dock in Anchorage. They either dock in Whittier, which is about 60 miles away from Anchorage, or in Seward, which is about 150, 160 miles away south of Anchorage. Glaciers and everything down there as well, so gorgeous. So you're going to be visiting from May to September. In May, it's still going to be a little bit on the chilly side in the evenings, upper 60s, maybe mid 60s during the day. September, about the same. In September, you might actually start to see some snow in the distance. In May, you may still see snow caps on the mountains in the distance. June, July are the most temperate times of the year in Alaska. And when I say temperate, you're not going to see temperatures above the mid 60s. And there's frequent rain. Doesn't typically last all day, but when it does rain, the temperatures can drop into the 50s, and it can be a bit chilly. So when you visit Alaska, you have to be prepared for our colder parts of the winter. So raincoats, sweaters, layers, so that you can take off and be comfortable. If you're looking for the Northern Lights, what's the other name for Northern Lights? The more formal name for Northern Lights? Who can tell me that? There's a princess that has the first name of this particular, what I'm looking for. So the time to go see the Northern Lights, the true Northern Lights, and the more north you go, so in the Fairbanks area, the more north you go, the more pure the lights are going to be, the more colors you're going to see, is from September to March. That's when you're going to see the best Northern Lights. You can occasionally catch a glimpse of them during the summer, but you got to remember, in the summer, there's 17 to 21 hours of daylight. So it doesn't typically get dark enough to see the Northern Lights. That was challenging when we lived there. The Aurora Borealis, good job, Coy. Having that much daylight, like, I'm a sun hound. So if it's sunny outside, I want to be outside doing something. So can you imagine how I processed 17 to 21 hours of daylight and trying to get 4 kids to bed while it was, you know, so sunny and ooh, let's go outside kind of weather. On the flip side of that, the middle of winter, you have maybe 2 to 3 hours of desk-like daylight. So my birthday's in the middle of January. I celebrated my 30th birthday in the middle of January, and I think maybe 2 hours of daylight that day. It was, yeah. So September to March is the time to see your northern lights. May to September is the best time to go. It won't let you comment. Refresh, Jessica. I think the internet has been very bogged down with a lot of people this week. Jessica's sending me a text message. Apparently she can't post for some reason. Refresh, get out and come back in. Jess, you're not spam. You're never spam. Okay, so how do you go visit Alaska? Again, by plane if you want to fly in and then explore on your own, by car or take a tour. There are escorted tours that go through Alaska, and they're fantastic because, again, then you have that guided expertise to make sure you don't miss anything. I'm sorry, Jess. Go to Chrome. If you're in Internet Explorer or use Chrome. Chrome likes the lives better. And that's just an FYI. Cruise ship. You can take cruises through Alaska, and I was scheduled for one in August, but unfortunately that got canceled this week by the group that I was going to escort. So I'm a little bummed about that, actually. But Firefox, well, maybe you need to use Chrome. I haven't tried it in Firefox yet. I just know it won't work in Internet Explorer, the lives. Okay, so cruise ships. You can start from Seattle, you can start from Vancouver, and you can take a northbound, either inside passage or northbound route. If you do the inside passage, it'll go through what we were talking about earlier, Sitka, Skagway, Juneau, that area. Or you do the northbound that goes on the outside of the peninsula there, okay? You can also do a southbound, start in Seward or Whittier, and go down to Seattle or Vancouver. There are some longer trips that actually start in San Francisco as well. So if you choose to go by cruise ship, it's a great way to go. You really see a lot of the sights, especially if you have a balcony window or balcony. It's a great way to see Alaska, and it's been very, very popular. It's very family friendly. A lot of families go to Alaska during the summer, and it's also a great trip if you're really not into the heat. You know, a lot of people travel to the Caribbean, Mexico, Bermuda, Bahamas, because they want the heat. They love that atmosphere, but some people aren't interested in that. They would rather see the wildlife and the history and the culture of their locations that they go to. So any questions about Alaska? Some great conversations that we're having about Alaska. Can you guys give me a thumbs up to make sure that Jess isn't the only one having problems? Oh, Melissa can't comment either. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, I tell you what, let me end this video and I will get back in, okay? And I'll start another one. So we're at the 39:28 mark on this video. I'm gonna end this video. Please jump back on board when I restart.